Kinsey,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter.
Yes. Motion passes.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the treasurer's report effective April 30th, 2022 as included with the agenda?
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Anderson,
Second.
Mrs. Dorn.
Just to point out a few things, the first blue sheet with your agenda, we can see that this is the one that shows what percentage of the budgeted amount in revenue and in expenditures we have achieved as of April 30th. April 30th is exactly 83% of the fiscal year that's elapsed. So for real estate taxes, we're right on the button with 100%. We've also got all of it in that we're going to get in for real estate this fiscal year. So that was a good guesstimate or budget, however you want to look at it. State foundation is pretty good too. We've got 82% of that in with 83% of the year elapsed. Some of these others are out of whack because we get big one-time money or large expenditures at the beginning of the school year or something, throw the plan out. But for salaries, 83% of the budgeted amount has been spent with 83% of the year elapsed. So we're right on the button with that. And then 2 pages back, we have it's a little bit different. This is the percentage of the total budget that each one of these line items represents. And I always like to point out that in revenue, you can see real estate taxes are making up 70% of our budget, and the state foundation and state and federal assistance is only 25%. And then we have some other miscellaneous. So basically 75% local right now and 25% state and federal funding in our district. For expenditures, salaries and wages, we've always heard if it's below 80%, you're doing pretty well normally. And we're at 75% when you add the 56% and the 19% for salaries, wages, and benefits.
I have a couple questions about our real estate taxes there. I believe the quote unquote fair school funding plan is in effect now, right?
It is.
And so how did that help us out?
A very minor amount. I don't have the exact dollar figure, but it wasn't.
It was like maybe a couple $100,000 per year or something.
Yeah, we have a $30 million general fund budget, so
Right.
It's nice to have that, but it's not a game changer kind of thing like they
So-
advertise it to be for us.
So the concern with that clearly is that at this point, the state, I think, has pretty much washed its hands. It thinks it's complied with the Rolfe decision. And when they've done everything they think they can do, and they think they can stand the court challenge to it or whatever, we got an extra couple $100,000, right? So our funding challenges remain as far as being heavily reliant upon property taxes.
Correct.
Unless we find an alternative.
Correct.
So, and apparently it's not, pretty evidently, it's not going to come from the state. It took 20 plus years, 26 years to get to whatever it was, to get the fair school funding plan in place. And really all it did was codify a formula and took the same amount of money, and just spread it out in a way that's more defensible. That really did not include any extra funding from the state.
It's similar to what happened in the late 90s when the state felt like they had complied with the Rolfe because they started giving districts state money for a large portion of building construction. So you might get 50% of your building paid for if your district, again, you had to be on the lower end of the property value and average income in your district model to get money for that kind of thing. But
yeah, the other piece is that it was just overly reliant on property taxes, so they added an income level of the community into that formula, and so that really doesn't help us at all.
Yeah.
So because our income level of community members and property values are both high relative to the state, so that didn't help us at all.
So what would have been nice, if we could have been involved in the formula definition, was maybe one of the formula variables there is how much does a community provide to the state in terms of income taxes. And that could have been, okay, you pay, X percentage above the average or whatever, then that would become a kickback from the state general fund rather than out of the direct educational fund or something like that. But those are the kind of things that need to be sought as alternatives, because we continue, obviously, thankfully, levy passed last year, but that's a limited fund budget with a clock's ticking, 7 years.
Indeed.
So there will be a problem. Unfortunately, right now we see raging inflation, and once again, thanks to the state, House Bill 920, we get no, property values can go to whatever, they can go to the moon, and we're essentially going to realize very little additional income from that other than from new construction. And so thankfully we got a reprieve right now, but it's really not too soon to start thinking about alternatives. And I think, in following meetings, we really need to start thinking, not waiting until 3, 4, 5 years from now, where we now are back into a corner and facing a crisis like we just went through. So I don't have any answers here. I'm just throwing the problem and walking away. But really,
I would agree. It is time to start, thinking through what do we do is our next step, because you're right, 7 years is when that levy ends. And, with the potential renewal of that, will that be sufficient? Do we need to, with inflation and so forth? So you're right. We have to look at what alternatives do we have, and it's not too early to start looking at those.
I mean, at best, it's a renewal. Right?
Right.
Fundamentally, we envision a renewal at some point, but that doesn't keep us, going up, adjusting our budget based on the effects of inflation. And we knew all along inflation was a threat. We nominally figured, I think, a couple % per year, not 8%.
Correct.
Or higher, whatever it could be. So again, this is going to be a challenge. I know I spoke with Representative Lampton a year or so ago when we were really on the ropes with our funding, and he seemed very attentive to the problem faced, because he's from Beaver Creek, right? So it's a similar district with similar problem with the funding model. And so the community, our board or whatever, need to start engaging like now, because nothing is going to happen quickly. And we do not need to go through again what we did over that 2-year period in which we're still recovering from. So enough said on that, but let's start thinking. One other quick question. What happens, we get so much money from, this is just a trivia question. We get so much money from the county, but obviously we don't have 100% compliance with people paying their property taxes. So do we actually wind up getting a little bit less than was forecast because there's, 8 or 10% of people don't pay their property taxes, so therefore we wind up a little bit short because of that?
Yes, except we figure that into our forecast, a guesstimate of what that average would be. I mean, it can also go the other way. If it's we don't have so much in this district, but if we had large commercial, big factory or something in this district that didn't pay their taxes for a couple of years, and then they catch up, you get a big chunk in 1 year, you might get more than 100% of what you thought.
Okay.
But normally it's like 98 or something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, we do.
Okay, good.
We do have delinquencies.
But that's built into the forecast that we aren't going to get 100% of what we should.
Right.
Mr. Kinsey, you had a comment? Okay.
I was only going to say, if we were to, I love it, because if we were to adopt a mindset on everything that we do, I want us to be proactive, not reactive in every topic.
Yeah. All right, anything else for your report? Any other questions? Do you have any more that you wanted to share with us from that?
No, I don't.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, please call the roll.
Okay, Mrs. Dorn?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes, motion passes.
We're going to motion to approve the update of the 5-year financial forecast as included with the agenda.
So moved.
Mrs. Dorn?
Second.
Mr. Kinsey? I was just about ready to do it.
I did want to say that the financial reports I just reviewed and the 5-year financial forecast are on the website already, actually.
Good.
Put them on today. So So we're
Did
set.
you post the explanation too of the line items that you gave us?
I did, well, yes, for
Okay.
the financial forecast. So it has the forecast, the notes to the forecast, and
Awesome.
explain
So
it.
you expanded beyond what used to be there, because that's one of the things, it's like, what does that mean, you know?
Right.
So I haven't looked in a while, so I don't know.
Yes, and then also expanded because we didn't have the monthly reports on there. I put the pie charts and the explanations for all that.
Good. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
So on the forecast, I wanted to point a couple things out, and my glasses to read this one. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them because there was a lot of detail here, but I just wanted to say that probably the most interesting line would be the first one, the property taxes, because as you know, school districts are on a financial fiscal year, they're on a fiscal year of July 1st to June 30th. The real estate taxes in the county are on a calendar year, January 1st to December 31st. So when our levy kicks in January, if you follow that, we're only getting half of it that first year because the year started for a school district accounting July 1st. So we have half of the collection of the levy in fiscal year 22 in that column.
Mhm.
We have the full collection in the 4 years after that. So that's one reason that the numbers vary so much between years. Also in the fiscal year 2025, that's a year of reappraisal. So that's when normally we get an increase in property values that affects our collections for real estate taxes slightly. And other than that, I just build in a 1% increase each year to be kind of conservative on that. Not sure where that's going to be.
But to underscore that reappraisal is based on new construction.
Yes.
It's not based upon,
Well, there's on inside millage.
Yeah, right.
We can get reappraisal on
Yeah,
4 mills or
that's
whatever,
a-
4.5.
a small portion of our overall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like less than 10%.
Yeah.
What we
So
get.
10% gets property value adjustment,
Right.
and if you build something new, yeah, but otherwise so it's not a one-to-one by any means, and that's hence the problem.
Yeah. Now, I've built in on the next row there, the 6 million figures, I've built in pretty much a freeze on state funding. We hardly ever get an increase in state funding, a substantial one. It's normally up a little and down a little and floats around right where with no increase. I wanted to point out, if you guys, I don't know how many of you were here and remember about 6 or 7 years ago when we did the House Bill 264 energy project, and you borrow money to update your district on energy saving techniques that are projected to save you more money than you borrowed and are paying interest. So, updating windows and things like that would, the LCD lighting, is that it? The LED lighting,
yeah.
LED lighting and things like that we did, and those did save us a lot of money. So that's going to be paid off in 3 years. So that last column for line 4.05 and 6 has no amounts in it because our principal and interest for that loan will be
Paid off.
paid off. So the two important lines are 6.01. If we were a business, this would be our line of profit or loss. So how much did we bring in? If it's a positive number, we brought in more than we spent. If it's a negative number, we spent more than we brought in. And that's 6.01 excess of revenues. And you can see it's positive all the way out until the last year, fiscal year 26, where it starts in the red. If we were to project this out, say 5 more years, we'd be significantly in the red. It goes down in a hurry at that point. Our cash balance at the end of the fiscal year is 7.02. That's what we call our carryover. And you can see that number going out increases until that last year. And I think the 2 points that I would like to make from this forecast are the basic points are that we're on good solid financial ground. We've got what I would call long-term stability financially at this point. A lot of things have happened here, and it looks like at this point, and I never stated an amount of years, but it looks like we will easily be able to go past the 7-year levy that we have there now before we have to ask the public for any increase in revenue. Hopefully, several years past that.
Okay.
So that's a good thing. We're good and solid financial stability, and we don't want to go through, promotion of a levy again like we had to for a couple of years there. So
yet a concern remains with inflation, right? Because I think we probably
yes,
built things on probably a 2% model or something like that, 2 to 2.5%.
that's true.
And not if it goes to 8, 10, 12, 14, 15, whatever. So.
And that's one reason the forecast is filed in November, and it's required to be updated in May.
Mhm.
So if sometime between, November and May, some things like that kick in, we make some big changes in this, come back with a better forecast.
Mhm.
It's basically just a management technique, and I always tell people, don't look at these last couple of years on this forecast and make big decisions based on it, because so many things can happen between now and then, but you can see the general look at what we're planning for here.
Between 24 and 25 on line 6.01, why is that such a drastic change, from 2.4 million to 567,000?
Well, I didn't mention this, but each year we built in the average of the last several years for increases in salary for staff of 2%.
Okay.
And the experience step, that would be there. Then that's just about the time that our grants, I think it's the year before actually, that our grants related to COVID, the ESSER grants,
Okay.
they expire. We're paying a lot of salaries with those.
Okay.
When they expire, those all go to general fund. That's probably the big thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
And if you get home and you see some numbers and have questions, look at the notes that are attached. They explain most of the big changes on there too.
All right.
That's all I have.
Any other questions? All right, please call the roll.
Mr. Kinsey,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes,
Mrs. Dorn.
Yes.
motion passes.
Can I get a motion to approve an amendment to fiscal year 22 appropriations in the amount of $300,469.21 as detailed with the agenda, and I will explain that once we have that on the floor.
So moved.
Mr. Kinsey,
Second.
Mrs. Dorn,
Okay. I think it's the last blue sheet.
Mhm.
Explains what we're doing. Let me just say this has nothing to do with, it looks like whenever we have an appropriation amendment upward, it looks like we're making some big expenditures that, we've overspent a budget or something. It has nothing to do with that. The smaller numbers, the $469 and the couple cents there are just little increases in federal grants that we had. So we want to budget the increases in the grants we'll be receiving. The lunchroom, the $200,000 increase there is because we received a lot of COVID lunchroom funding and also supply chain money that we didn't know we were going to get at the beginning of the year. We were able to, fortunately, buy a lot of lunchroom equipment with that, because that has to happen sometime down the road. That stuff only lasts so long. So because we got that money and because we had a need for equipment, that's why that lunchroom budget appropriation needs to be increased. And then the bond retirement and the principal's funds, just an activity account. I always budget low on that because I don't know how much activity they're going to have in those. And then toward the end of the year, I increase it to get more realistic to what the level is. So. Any questions about any of those amendments?
Okay. All right, please call the roll.
Okay. Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes,
Mrs. Dorn,
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey.
Yes.
motion passes. All right. We now go on to correspondence, and board members did get an email this morning with concerns about the choir concerts last evening and the accompanist who served during that concert. Concerns were about the appropriateness of the individual who was there to be the accompanist, and the district has been addressing that and has addressed some of the items already, but did issue a statement later in the day And I'm going to go ahead and read what the statement was from the district. It says, district families, an observant parent brought to our attention that there was an individual playing accompaniment at last night's choir concert who had a criminal background involving misdemeanors. This person is not a regular employee and was only contracted for this one event, of this one concert, We wanted you to know about this incident, but also to know that there was no adverse event between this individual and any of our students. In addition, we have been assured that this individual was never alone with students and a staff member was always with him. It is our policy to conduct background checks on individuals who work with our students, but in this instance, that was not done. On behalf of our administrative team, we offer our sincere apologies for this oversight. We can and will do better. Safety and security of our students and staff remains our highest priority. We are in the process of re-examining our background check procedures, and we have already worked with authorities to officially trespass this person off all school-owned properties. And that was the communication that went out late this afternoon, and that was to all district families. Questions or comments from the board members?
I'd like to make a couple comments if I could.
Okay.
I think this is probably the appropriate time. I don't have it in front of me, but my comments will probably very closely mirror an email that I sent to a concerned parent this morning. Like everybody else, when I became aware of this situation, it was shocking.
Mm-hmm.
It was disturbing. Yeah, so I would like to just pledge and maybe give a little bit of reassurance if I can, even though very, very difficult situation. I would like to pledge that there will be a thorough investigation. That's already begun.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of that investigation, whatever the outcome is, at minimum, I can assure you there will be very specific, tangible changes to our procedures so that we can try to mitigate a failure like this in the future.
Mm-hmm. Other questions or comments?
I think it's important to note this was not an individual that was brought before us for board action. You know, there was no, which if it's going to be an employee that, a regular employee, whether it's a teacher, staff, a supplemental advisor, whatever, there's always a background check for that. This was a different situation, and therefore it never came to our knowledge. And as Kinsey said, there'll be an investigation to make sure something like this doesn't happen again. It's certainly nothing we would even remotely approve of, not even for a nanosecond if we had known what was going on. So, yeah, we do our best as a district, but doesn't mean it's always going to be perfect. And so we'll, learn.
Yeah, there wasn't much about normal procedures in this whole scenario. So that's where we'll have to tighten that up and make sure that we don't in the future. All right. Going on then to good news recognition. Stack of good things here this evening to recognize. First of all, we have our valedictorian for the class of 2022, Glenn Oxer. Glenn, is she here?
She's on the trip to New York.
Oh, she's in New York. Well, Glenn, if you're watching, congratulations.
Stopped her.
She's interviewing at the United Nations.
I know.
We'll get to recognize her again at graduation. So our salutatorian for the class of 2022 is Caitlin M. Reed. It's Caitlin here.
She plays lacrosse.
At graduation.
Lesson learned. Participate in extracurriculars.
That's right.
I kind of just want to quiz Mr. Carrera and see if you know everything.
Yeah, I don't know. My feelings were hurt here.
All right, this next one is an interesting and kind of phenomenal in a lot of ways. 2022 National Drones in School Competition for Bellbrook High School. The Monkey Brain team, great name, got tied for first overall as co-national champions. And the Hog Flyers team, another great name, finished fourth overall in the national competition. So Mr. Lambright is their advisor, but I'm kind of recognize the student names in this. 12 students traveled to Florida to compete in the National Drones in School competition. The students were Hamilton Bridges, Camden Caldwell, Tony Giovanni, Isaac Lefeld, Jonathan Martin, Kevin Prey, Jack Sauer, Harrison Shoup. Got the next line, monkey brain, sorry. So Harrison Shoup, Luke Smallwood, Paul Smith, Aiden Boimer, is that the right pronunciation? Boimer. Okay. Thank you very much. And Colton Warren. Mr. Lambright coached both teams, Monkey Brain and the Hog Flyers. The Monkey Brain team tied for first overall and therefore are co-national champions. Additionally, the Monkey Brain team placed first in the portfolio and display category, second in the capture the flag event, second in the video presentation category, and second in the design and engineering category. The Hog Flyers placed fourth overall and are in first place in the design and engineering category, third place in the portfolio and display category, and fourth place in the head-to-head competition, and tied for third in capture the flag. So, Mr. Lambright, you thanks for being here. So,
I want to know when we get to see the drone.
oh, when you
Is there an exhibition or something?
There's a video I can.
okay. Maybe sometime before a board meeting. We can,
Is it like a YouTube link or something like that?
Yeah.
Could you email us as board members?
Yeah, I definitely will.
That would be really
That
appreciated.
would be great. That'd be great. Thank you, sir. Also on your agenda is the Indoor Percussion Ensemble and the District Winter Guard. We're going to recognize them next month. So, and then we also have a certificate of recognition for Readathon, Stephanie Vukovic, Stephenville Library generating a whopping $31,500.
So of that, money that we raised,
Turn this way so that we can see you on television land.
out of that money that we raised, we are getting 80%, which is $26,000 to replace both of Stephen's mouth. So our kids are really excited.
That's awesome.
What was the typical amount you raised in years past?
We have never done readathon.
Okay.
In the
Or
past.
through other methods, you've had fundraisers?
So typically, we will host a scholastic book fair twice a year with our average being around 16,000 in sales, and of that, we get 25%.
Wow.
So this is a big bump up.
$20,000.
Wow.
Yeah, it would take 4 years of book fairs to raise what we did
Wow.
for readathon. So
That's awesome. So congratulations. And now, maybe in the misnomer category of good news, we have our retirees, but we have them to recognize them. So it's good to recognize them. First of all, we have Kelly Anderson. She's been a Bell Creek counselor for 15 years. Kelly, are you here?
No, she's not here.
I don't see her.
No, she's not
Okay. Thank you. And then we have Lisa Bakita. This. Lisa was in language arts at the middle school, 21 years, and also gifted intervention specialist.
Yeah,
Gifted,
gifted ELAs.
oh, gifted ELA, okay. So.
And art.
And you taught art.
Yes.
Okay. Did you want to say anything else?
Well,
You don't have to, it's up to you.
I'm gonna thank my fans for you. We moved to Bellbrook in '96, applied and didn't get hired then. So I do want to thank Jeanette and Jess that they are here because they saw something in me and they tolerated me. And I started 2001 when we had the tragedy of 9/11, and I'm ending right at the end of this pandemic. So I don't know what to say about a lot of wonderful memories and successes for students. And I just know that my goal was to help students reach their fullest potential, and now it's my turn.
Great. Kevin Basinger, 25 years in the high school. Congratulations, sir. Do you want to have anything to say?
Oh, I have a couple things. First of all, I talk about the things that haven't changed. I was lucky enough to start teaching with Jeff Beckley. We started together at Greenview 34 years ago, or 33, whatever. And feel very fortunate that we were able to come to Bellbrook in '97. And I came as the football coach, but also as a math teacher. And I took a lot of pride in being the best football coach that I could be, but I also felt very fortunate that I got to teach the kids at Bellbrook for so many years, and it's been quite an adventure. I've loved every minute of it, and met some wonderful, wonderful people, and I'm so thankful that I've been able to be here. Also, I want to mention Kevin Liming has signed every one of my checks except for a couple years as treasurer, so that's been a very interesting concept. The one thing, though, I do have to say is I used to dress like Jeff back in the day, and now look like I've grown. And also, I had really dark hair back in the day, and somehow it's not migrating forward. It's top, so. But I am so thankful that I've had this opportunity, and thank all the wonderful people that I've been around all these years. So, thank you.
Marianne Russia. Stephen Bell Secretary for 28 years. You know, if you want to know what's going on in the school, ask the school secretary. That's going to be the person who's really in the know.
Thank you all so much. I'm psyched.
Let's see, I don't need a sticker on this one. Mary Ellen Carpenter. 21 years in the elementary area. 4th grade, 3rd grade, 1st grade, 2nd grade, and then in 2nd grade, the gifted intervention specialist. So I know I have a good idea of what goes on at every teacher's house and how much work they do.
Yes, I want to say something. And I really want to address the board as well as all of you out here. One of the things that I have loved about this job that I've had here is I've been given enormous opportunities. And I had to write some of it down because I know I wouldn't remember all of it. I've gone to conferences many times, literacy conference, gifted conference, William and Mary College conference in Virginia. I was sent there. Ohio Association of Gifted, been there 2 or 3 times and actually presented with Betsy a couple times. MAP regional conference where Betsy and I presented about what was going on in 2nd grade gifted. We did a MAP national conference as well. I've had the many opportunities there that have been given to me by this district. I taught at Wright State for 1 year in their hybrid educator program, and that was an opportunity that was given to me. And out of that opportunity, I had a chance to be an adjunct professor for 5 years. I did benchmarking for the RESA and the OTES evaluations before they ever were a thing in San Francisco, and had a chance to do those way out of my league there. They were all college professors, and I hardly said anything. I know that's probably hard to imagine, but I didn't say much at all. Yeah. So lots of opportunities that I was given because the district was willing to invest in a teacher and give opportunities for that. So I really appreciated that. Some fun facts about me. My first contract, maybe some of you have the same thing, was $6,600. $6,600. I had to work 3 jobs. That was one of them in order to stay afloat. One of my jobs paid the rent. One of my jobs bought me groceries, and the other job bought my gas. And then I met someone who was like, holy cow, what are you doing? In Bellbrook, we moved here in 1985. We have moved 4 times in Bellbrook. We've done south, we've done east, we've done west, and we now are renovating a house not far from here in the north part of the district. We love Bellbrook. We are still going to be here even when we're retired, and we're going to support this district within whatever way we can. And to end my comments, my largest class I ever taught was 31 students. That was in 3rd grade at a Catholic school I taught at before I came here. The lowest class numbers I ever had were 22 students. I got 2 degrees, PE and early childhood education, 1 master's degree plus 99 hours, because when I went to all these conferences, I bought the hours for them. So I probably could have had a doctorate if I'd have been smart about this early on. I have 3 endorsements. I've taught 5 different subject areas. I have taught in 4 different buildings. I have had 6 different principals, and I have had amazing families that I've had a chance to work with, all because of opportunities that you have offered to a teacher. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart that I have had this experience here. I came in, and Ginger can probably tell you, I was her teaching partner the very first year I came back, and it was rough because so much had changed. And I had to get up to snuff, and that's why I took every opportunity that was given to me by the board. So keep up that good work. And I know we've had a little bit of shutdown on conferences and so on and so forth, but I am a much better teacher today than I was when I stepped foot in that 4th grade classroom years ago. And it's because of the opportunities I've had here. So thank you very much. And you guys have been an amazing staff. I've loved being with you. And there are 10 days left, just saying. You get to.
Jeannie Johnson. 30 years as a counselor.
You're fine. I don't know if I can talk all that.
Just say ditto.
I was recently sitting down with one of my 6th graders, and she looked at me and said, Miss Johnson, you're retiring? I said, yeah, I'm retiring. She's like, no, Miss Johnson, you look old enough. I said, oh, I'm plenty old. Then she looked at me, she says, I know why you're retiring. I said, well, why do you think I'm retiring? She said, you're choosing those 2 babies over all of these students. And I said, you know what? You're a very smart 6th grader. I'm a Bellbrook grad, been at Bellbrook my whole life. My kids are Bellbrook grads, and my hope is someday my grandkids are going to be Bellbrook grads because I bleed purple and gold. And I thank you all for all my opportunities. I've enjoyed everything thoroughly.
Carrie Ann Rice. 39 years, 1st grade.
When I was in 1st grade, I started teaching in 1980, and I was in another district for a couple of years before I came here. I was in IS for 10 years here in Bellbrook. I actually started at the old Sugarcreek building before I came to Stephen Bell.
Okay.
Yes, and I was in the IS position for 10, and in 1990, everything changed for me because I got to go to 1st grade, and it's been just a pleasure. I loved teaching 1st grade. Literacy is my heart, and I've had a wonderful time, and I feel very privileged. It's been the privilege of my life, of my career, to be able to work here with wonderful family, staff, my staff friends at school, my principal. I've had a lot of principals, but Ginger Keaton is by far the strongest leader I've ever had, and she's made me a better teacher, and my colleagues have also enhanced my career, and I have strived to keep up with the latest techniques, and I've worked really hard to learn that technology, because when I started, we had those Ditto machines. That smell. And back in the day, we all wore pantyhose and skirts, and you had to do all that yucky stuff. So now it's very nice and it's much more casual. It's been wonderful, and I'm going to miss this job, but I will be back to volunteer to help in the classroom. I don't really want to sub. I've gone that far.
Bus driver.
Bus driving would be like, no, my husband wants me to be
And finally, Teresa Woodbury for 18 years.
Congratulations. I would just like to thank Jeanette and Jeff for the best years of my life. I've had a great time working here, and I'm going to miss everybody. Thank you very much.
Dave, I'd like to make a quick comment here.
Sure.
For those of you that are retiring, I'd just like to say, I always find it awkward, or what's the word here, frankly a bit emotional when I see people retiring. Because I recognize it's the culmination of education, career, a passion, and I feel like it's impossible for us to give you the recognition. In fact, it is. I mean, we just can't here in a few minutes we have a board meeting. But it really means a lot to me to have you all come out tonight, that you would let us at least say thank you. I feel bad so often we'll get these retirement notices in our stack here, and sometimes the people are here, sometimes they aren't. And sometimes they are, and we don't say a whole lot, and I always feel really guilty after that, But I recognize it's a bittersweet thing for you. Maybe not. Maybe some of you are sayonara. I'm glad but I suspect, though, that most of you found a good bit of reward and satisfaction in knowing that you are doing God's work. I mean, just molding children. My God, what else is more important than that? So I'm babbling here, but hopefully you get what I'm saying. I really, God love you, and bless you. Thank you for serving in our community and volunteering and things like that would be much appreciated. There are ways you can contribute. Those of us in the military, we go off in different directions, after a career, find a way. And so please don't go too far, unless you got a really cool place to live. Maybe like Florida or South Carolina might be that. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Price, for expressing sentiment that I think we all up here share. All right, we'll give everybody just a moment here. Yeah, I thought it might. Okay, going on to open communication. We have one person signed up, Heidi Hacker. Hi, Heidi.
My name's Heidi Hacker. I live at 1432 Kensington Drive.
Yes.
I grew up in that house. It was my parents' house. We now are raising our children in that house. I've been a resident of Bellbrook for 40 years. I graduated from Bellbrook High School. My mother was a teacher in the school system.
For my
was
kids.
the concerned parent that emailed the board.
Yes.
Long story short, my concern now, and I appreciate what has happened so far, is we question who missed this. Who is responsible for checking these people coming into our schools? Volunteers get checked. Our teachers get checked. We have teachers who have to get another check because they're now going to chaperone this, but it's not in their teaching capacity. So I want to know who is responsible for doing this checking so this doesn't happen again. I understand you all are going to be revising the way you do this and the process that it needs to happen in. But this person was hired, contracted, and paid money to be around my child where there is a protective order against him. The school was not aware of the protective order because we never in a million years would have thought he would pass a background check to be in the school district. Otherwise, we would have informed the school of the protective order. So again, I appreciate him being trespassed from the school system. That puts my child's mind at ease. It puts us at ease a little bit, but we still want to know what process we're going to go through from here and who should be doing that process. Thank you.
Thank you. I think your contact point for the future will be Dr. Kozad.
Okay. And we will follow up. This is not going to go away.
Right.
We will follow up until there's a resolution.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for reading that.
Yes, thank you.
And I'm very sorry personally that this.
All right, the next item on our agenda is for an executive session for the purpose of considering employment and compensation of public employees per Ohio Revised Code 121.22, paragraph G1. And then we do plan to come back and finish the rest of the meeting. But do I have a motion for going into executive session?
So moved.
Mrs. Dorn,
Second.
Mrs. Anderson, Mr. Lyman, can you please call the roll?
Yes. Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. Dorn,
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes.
Motion passes. We are going into executive session at 7:50. All right, and we're going to go into the library. very good. All right, we are out of executive session at 9:20 and continuing on our agenda with the consent agenda, which is items 7A, 7B, and 7C. And also the items in the hand carry, which are 7A, 11, 12, and 13, supplemental duty for people activities other, and then the supplemental duty employment contract for Jessica Riggs, and an amendment to motion 2260, number 7, to reflect payment on the salary schedule for Sarah Grega
Yep, great.
from BA 150 to BA. Do we have any items that the board members would like to have separated out of the consent agenda? All right, hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda, which is, again, 7A, 7B, 7C, and the hand carry items for 7A?
So moved.
Mr. Price?
Second.
Mrs. Anderson? Any questions or comments? All right, Mr. Liming, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. Dorn,
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes. All right, Dr. Kozad, I'll turn this over to you for 7D.
All right, substitute teachers, substitute support staff employment, recommend approval of substitute teachers, school nurses, and support staff for the first semester of the 22-23 school year.
And then that refers to the list.
Yep. We have to do this twice a year. We do it the first semester and second semester.
All right, the bright pink paper. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Dorn? And a second? I'll go ahead and second it then. Any questions or comments?
I'll need to abstain because my wife is on the list there.
Yes, sir. Any other questions or comments? All right, Mr. Liming, please call the roll.
Mrs. Dorn,
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Abstain.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter.
Yes. Motion passes.
Recommend approval of the administrative job description revisions for the position of Director of Special Ed.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mrs. Anderson?
Second.
Mr. Kinsey?
And just a clarifying on it, there should not be 210 days on there, even though that's what this contract is. It should just be full time. And the days should not be named on there. We don't typically put the number of days on there, even though that is what the contract was for. Really, the revisions are really taking the preschool out of here effectively, because we have a separate supervisor for preschool that we contract with ESC for.
Mhm.
And other things with more clarification and so forth, the rewording of things.
All right, any questions or comments? All right, Mr. Liming, please call the roll.
Mr. Kinsey,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. Dorn.
Motion passes.
District handbooks, recommend approval for revisions to the K-12 student and parent handbooks for the 22-23 school year.
I have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Mrs. Dorn?
Second.
Mrs. Anderson? Questions or comments?
Just want to clarify that, I think we talked about this previously, as far as building start times and the question of when are these set in stone? They're published in the handbooks, and so this vote is what sets them in stone.
Yep, officially.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, Mr. Laming, please call the roll.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes,
Mrs. Dorn,
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey.
Yes.
motion passes. Dr. Koza, do you have any items of information or discussion?
I do not.
Did I say Mr. or Doctor? I might have missed.
I don't know.
I don't know. My apologies if I was unintentionally offensive. Anybody else? All right, do we have a motion for adjournment? Mr. Kinsey,
Second.
Mrs. Dorn. Mr. Laming, please call the roll.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes,
Mrs. Dorn,
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes.
motion passes. We are adjourned at 9:26.